This is All Eyes on Cleveland. I am your host, Brad Ward. Mikey is on the ones and twos as usual behind the virtual glass. It is 7 p.m. Eastern Time, October 14th, the year 2021, week 6 of your NFL season. Just about to kick off here tonight, and we have a very special guest to join us tonight and talk about Browns football as they go into a monster week where they will face the sole undefeated team left in the NFL, the Cardinals. And we would like to welcome to the show the man next to me, Josh Edwards, who covers the NFL for CBS Sports, fellow Ohio U graduate and Xavier graduate. Welcome to the show, Josh. How we doing tonight?
Doing pretty well. It's good to be with a fellow Bobcat talking some Browns football. So getting ready for the Thursday night game here, and looking forward to talking with you.
Yeah, absolutely. Got my DraftKings lineups in. I'm ready to go for tonight and getting ready for this weekend here. But much to discuss on the Browns front. Brutal loss last weekend. Found a way to kind of lose that one. The Chargers, Justin Herbert is pretty freaking good. Let's bring up a little visual here. This is tonight's show. Mikey's gonna get that up here for us. There we go. There it is. Browns learning from growing pains, featuring Josh Edwards of CBS Sports, presented by Blue Wire Hustle. Let's kick off and start talking about Baker Mayfield a little bit. Okay, so I want to start with a couple quotes here. This is post-Stefanski press conference. Scott Petrak posts, here on Twitter. On OBJ only getting 3 targets, Kevin Stefanski says he's a dynamic football player, very front of the mind when we're game planning, when we're calling plays. Sometimes defense dictates that the ball goes elsewhere, and we're comfortable with that because we have good players elsewhere. I went back, right, and as I'm sure many of you have, and watched this game again and watched it from the coach's film and looking for kind of when Baker's getting to his drop, and he was patting the ball a lot. When he would get to his drop, he was very hesitant on what looked like shot plays on Sunday. Played a good game. He was accurate. Bounced back. I think on 122 quarterback rankings, so you can't fault him there. I feel like, though, week in and week out, and he had a couple rough weeks in a row there, but even this week, Josh, I feel like he's missing or not taking the same chances down the field that he maybe was at the end of last year. I don't know if that's a confidence thing. We talked a lot about last week. My brother had the same injury. We had some people on to talk about it. It's not really the pain, but it's the harness is really restrictive. So when you go to, really throw it down the field, maybe that's it, because that's kind of the start of that leverage or that torque that you need to throw the ball down the field. Maybe that's why he's not throwing it. But I can think of 4 instances or point to them where Odell was open down the field and he didn't give him a chance. Now, I don't know why this is happening. The whole thing is very strange with Odell. Just give me your overarching thoughts on Baker this season through 5 weeks, and kind of what am I crazy? Tell me I'm crazy. I would love to hear that I'm crazy on this, Josh.
Well, I think it's kind of a mixed bag. We've seen the good against the Chiefs. We saw the good against the Chargers for 90% of that football game. And then those last 2 drives were very questionable. Whether it was the play calling, whether it was the concern with the offensive tackle injuries, whatever it may be, there was obviously something that was prohibiting Cleveland from pushing the ball down the field and really trying to get in position to score there at the end of that game. So something is at play here. Now, Odell is still a player that commands respect around the league. I mean, teams are rolling coverage in his direction, but like you said, there's a few instances where he's wide open. Donovan Peoples-Jones, he's a guy that probably has deserved to get the ball more than he's gotten to this point of the year. And, for whatever reason, he just it just hasn't been possible yet. So, talking about the arm injury that he suffered against the Texans, whether it's pain, whether it's discomfort, there's obviously something that's bothering him there, because he's a player that uses his entire body to get into his throws and to attack downfield. So when you have some of that limitation in your arm and some of your movement, the harness, as you mentioned, it's going to provide a little bit of discomfort, and certainly going to be in the back of his mind when he's making throws. Now, maybe this is a situation where, if he continues practicing with it, he grows more comfortable with it, and we're not talking about it in 2 weeks. Like Rip Hamilton in the playoffs several years ago when he had the see-through face mask,
the mask, right?
In the playoffs. That's something that you just have to get used to when you go through your life not dealing with something, and then suddenly there's a little bit of discomfort or something that's something that's inhibiting you. It's going to take some time to develop and to get through that. And I think we possibly have seen that from Baker over the past couple of weeks, whether he's going to admit that or not. I think there's certainly something at play with him.
Yeah, I agree. Here's another quote today, just to kind of reiterate that point a little bit more here. But this is, speaks to what we're talking about here. John Costco, Devontae Adams and Odell Beckham Jr. are getting open on about 72% of their routes 5+ yards downfield this year. I mean, that right there, 3 targets, minimal targets other weeks, not getting the ball, but he's open, right? So why is he not getting the ball, I guess, is the ultimate question.
It's a very good question. I'm not sure anybody really has an answer for it at this point in time. It's such a strange thing that's occurring between those two, because you've obviously got a really talented wide receiver. He's not causing issues on the sideline. He's not making this about himself. He hasn't gone to the media and complained about a lack of targets. Like, none of that is happening where we've seen that in previous years. Like, he seems perfectly content with his role right now. And Baker, by all accounts, does not seem to be forcing the ball to him. So this is something that is seemingly happening organically, but it's not happening at the rate that maybe fans or even the coaches would like for it to at this point. I think eventually they have to get on the same page. Like, those two guys are so talented that eventually they are going to get on the same page, but it hasn't materialized to this point. And now you look at the schedule. You have 2 very close losses to a couple of teams that are conceivably going to be in your path to the Super Bowl, whether it's the Chargers, whether it's the Chiefs. And now you have the undefeated Cardinals coming into town as well. Like, you've got to get some victories against those teams that are considered to be at the top of their divisions, at the top of their conferences. And Baker, for whatever reason, has just not been able to lead those game-winning drives the way that some of his peers have to this point in the season.
Yeah, there's no doubt about it. And it, Josh, I think it limits what the ceiling of what the Browns can be, right? I mean, like, what they can actually, their ceiling as a football team is very much limited unless this gets unlocked, right? Or do you lean towards, there are many out there that are ready to give up on a situation and move him in a trade scenario?
I think it's a very wait-and-see approach. Browns fans, you kind of have to consider the context of Browns fans, and that's that even their 2 decades of pretty poor football, specifically at the quarterback position. So the moment that you get something that resembles competency, you kind of latch on to that. It's Baker is the guy that wanted to be in Cleveland. He's the guy that endeared himself to the fans and the community. And I understand the fans wanting to ride with him, but you have to consider where Andrew Berry is at this point, because he's a guy that has spent the last 2 off seasons doing whatever it takes to improve this roster. So I'm not saying that he's going to move on from Baker. I think it's still very much fencing right now in terms of you move on, you keep him. But if you don't think that he's going to explore the possibility of getting a better option at the quarterback position, and maybe that's not available because, I cover the draft as well, and there's just not a Trevor Lawrence in this draft class. So it's not like you're going to flip him for a couple of first-round picks and go get your Trevor Lawrence or whoever your quarterback of choice is. Like, that's not feasible this year. So then you're talking about the veterans, whether it's Russell Wilson, whether it's Aaron Rodgers. Do you want them at their advanced stages of their career, or if things clear up with Deshaun Watson, do you make a play there? Like, there are so many question marks with the quarterback market that I don't necessarily think that you can say Cleveland has to move on from him, even if you determine that you potentially have some better options out there. Because honestly, I don't think the type of quarterback is going to be available that might entice Andrew Berry to potentially move on from him. I think we might go into another season where we're trying to determine if this is the guy that Cleveland's going to move forward with for the better part of a decade.
Yeah, so I was more referring towards Odell, I guess. So moving on from Odell, I guess I really haven't even, Josh, to be honest with you, I'm in no way in a hurry to get rid of Baker Mayfield. I just don't think, I think he will work out. I think, I can't take credit for this quote. I think Ken Carman or to Anthony Lima said it. They're definitely engaged, right? The Browns and Baker Mayfield, but they're not quite. They haven't set a date yet, right? They're not making plans for the wedding yet. I feel that way about it. I feel like they are definitely in it together. I don't want to see the Browns go in a different direction. I think that he'll get it figured out. The question is the contract this offseason. So, it's week 5, so things could go in a number of directions as we move forward. How do you say he ends the season like this, like a C performance this season? How do you handle his contract situation in the offseason?
Well, at that point, if you explore the options that are available to you via trade or through the draft, and you determine that you don't have a better option out there, then I think the best way to move forward is to go through a franchise tag, maybe 1 year for sure, maybe 2 years, and just try to keep, kicking the can down the road and see what you've got in them. Because to this point, you can't confidently say that Baker has played to a level where he commands $40 million a year. Again, I don't want it to come across as, Baker's a bad quarterback or I think that they should move on from him. I don't think that's the case. But I don't think that you've seen everything that you need to see to necessarily believe that it's time to give him that 5-year, $40 million a year type contract that puts him up in the upper echelons with Dak Prescott or Patrick Mahomes or Josh Allen or Lamar Jackson coming soon. Like, I don't think you're at that point right now. So you just kind of have to continue kicking the can down the road and just hope that there's a breakthrough and some consistency that you've kind of urged for.
Yeah. I think if he could get back to the level he was playing at the end of last year and sustain that for a period of time this season and make another run into the playoffs, I think that he would earn that. Because people are saying, oh, you can sign him, but just sign him to 30 or 35. That ship sailed, I think. It's either going to be he's your franchise quarterback and it's $40 million or more, but at least $40 million Dak Prescott money, and he's your franchise quarterback and you're going to sign him to that deal because he proved it this year, or you're going to franchise tag him or kick the can down the road. I don't think you lower the price and say, oh, he was not good enough to earn 40, but we'll sign him to 33. I think that's no man's land, and I don't think the Browns want to end up there. Do you agree with that?
Well, it's a non-starter if you're an agent. First of all, agents
absolutely
don't believe in taking a lower number. Even if they don't believe that he's playing at a Dak Prescott caliber, you're not going to lower your demands. That's just not how the quarterback market has worked historically. So you're either all in or you're allowing him to test free agency or you're franchise tagging him. That's exactly what we saw with Dak Prescott. And I think if you're kind of middling with Baker Mayfield, that's probably what's going to happen in that scenario as well.
Certainly, circumstances around him so far, Josh, haven't been, it hasn't been what we wanted so far. It hasn't been terrible. I personally feel like he'll prove it by the end of the year. I do. I still have that belief in him. Are you leaning that way? Do you think he will prove it? Do you think he bounces back and shows that he's the guy this year? Or are you more in limbo on this than you've ever been?
I'm still in limbo, to be quite honest. We've seen the very good of Baker Mayfield, and when the game is when you're playing the first three quarters, like he's been fantastic this year. My only concern with him is those end of game scenarios. Because when you look at what happened with Patrick Mahomes, when you look at what's happened with Lamar Jackson, when you look at what's happened with Justin Herbert, like those guys have gone out and led their teams to victory, and we just haven't seen outside of the Cincinnati game last year. We really haven't seen those type of performances from Baker to this point. Now, I will say the context is important to what we saw this past Sunday because, like I said, the offensive tackles were very dinged up and both out at various points in that game. So that has to be taken into account. But I think to that second to last drive where they were facing a 3rd and 9 and they handed it off to Kareem Hunt instead of, trying to get that first down through the air, and they were holding on to a 1-point lead at that particular point in time. So, if you get that first down, there's a very good chance that you're able to run the clock out at that point. Whereas they decided to run the ball with Kareem, maybe you were hoping to catch them off guard, but that's not the way it plays out. I think the way we've seen Los Angeles or Kansas City, like they're putting the ball in the hands of their quarterbacks in those particular situations and trusting them to make a play. Again, did the offensive tackles come into that equation? I don't know. But then you go to the final series, and there's just no excuse for throwing three plays into the field of play and only getting 11 yards out of it. You get one first down out of 3 passing plays. It takes a minute off the clock. Suddenly you've got 27 seconds left or something like that, and you have no shot other than a couple of Hail Marys to potentially win that game. So I don't know the circumstances. Maybe there's more at play than just the offensive tackles, but those plays either have to be to the boundary or you're better off dropping them at that point in time because a 2 or a 3 yard gain is getting you nothing at that point in time.
No, I'm with you there, brother, 100%. The end of that game was frustrating, and that's one of the topics we want to hit on tonight, and we'll move to that now. You're watching All Eyes on Cleveland, special guest Josh Edwards. He covers the NFL for CBS Sports. You can follow him on Twitter at EdwardsCBS. So, they get the ball with 3 minutes, and it's like, Stefanski's so aggressive all game long, and he made the comment that he's sick about that play call, right? He realized he screwed it up. You throw it on second down, you got to throw it on third down. You probably should have thrown it on first down, to be honest. I get what they're doing, but when you're in that aggressive mode, you can't just switch to conservative because the guy missed the extra point. It has to be, all right, in all the scenarios we ever talk about as a team with this offensive line and this offense, we always talk about there's 3 minutes on the clock, 2 minutes on the clock. We have to get 1 or 2 first downs to end the game. That's the ideal situation. That's what you want as this Browns offense, I would think. And he kind of he got kind of choked a little bit, for lack of a better word. And Stefanski is still the man. He's still a great coach. He's still the best guy for this job in Cleveland, and I love him. But he choked in this situation. A lot of people are like, oh, well, it's a sign that he doesn't trust Baker. Whether he trusts Baker or not, you still have to attempt to get the first down on third down. That's how I feel, Josh. Do you think it is a trust thing? It can't be if he threw it on second down, right?
I don't know. I think it's certainly possible. Baker, through the rest of that game, had actually looked fairly decent pushing the ball downfield. He had the one down the right side to Anthony Schwartz that I think Schwartz was just a little too caught up in hand fighting as opposed to just running his route and making the play because, he had a step on the guy and he just, was more concerned with creating even more separation, which he really didn't need. Like it's the NFL, that stuff, you kind of take one step and you go on. So I think Baker is more than capable of doing it. He was putting passes into tight windows all game long. It's not like, this was a situation where against the Bears or, the Vikings where his accuracy had been a little bit off throughout the course of the game. This was a game where he was making the type of throws that we had come to expect from him in those first 2 weeks. Um, and for whatever reason, he just didn't have an opportunity to throw on third down. Now, I will say maybe the pressure was getting to Stefanski a little bit too, because you get to these end game situations and they haven't come through in those situations to this point. That's kind of the one hurdle he has left to clear. So maybe he's getting in his own head a little bit at that point in time. You rely on your ground game. You kind of think that maybe they're going to be the ones to carry you, but in that instance, I think you have to let Baker throw and try to get you the first down. With that being said, I have no doubts that Kevin Stefanski is the right coach for the Cleveland Browns. I think he's one of the 5 best coaches in the NFL right now. He's done a fantastic job, and I think for the first time in a long time, Cleveland can be excited about not only the present but the future. We're talking about competitive football games here against, some of the other teams
Elite
in the
teams.
AFC.
Yeah.
Like it's not like the old days where, you're talking about squeaking out a win against the Lions or the Bengals or whoever it might be. Like, these are legitimate teams that Cleveland is contending with. Now you have to take that next step and get over that, clear that hurdle.
Yeah. The good thing is they have a chance to go beat an elite team on Sunday against the Cardinals, undefeated, and we'll talk more about that here in a minute. I do want to hit on the defense here with you real quickly. So John Johnson wore the green dot for the first time on Sunday. There was some brutal defensive breakdowns on Sunday as Mike Williams running butt naked on two missed coverages. They were in quarters both times. I think they also credited Ronnie Harrison with missing on the Parham touchdown too. Was not where he was supposed to be as far as coverage. That was also basically a blown coverage. Let's bring this up here. This is Kevin Stefanski said John Johnson, the third, calling the defense on Sunday for the first time this season, did not contribute to any of the communication issues that led to blown coverages. And they were blown coverages. So, as far as that goes, is that just a matter of these guys, in your eyes, because the defense had looked great for 2 weeks in a row. They took a big step back last week, obviously against an elite quarterback, different level of competition, all those things come into play. But I still thought the front four played rather well at times. Even Tack McKinley coming in for Clowney played really well, I thought. And even the guys in the secondary. So, a lot of people were saying, this was a depth problem. The Browns were in their depth. But really, A.J. Green stepped up. I thought he played pretty well. And, certainly Greedy Williams played a terrific game. 10 tackles, a couple pass breakups. They did a good job. The guys that did not play well, unfortunately, fan favorite here at this show, Troy Hill, did not have a very good game. He gave up, I think, 5 catches on 6 targets to him. We already mentioned Harrison was brutal. I think his PFF score was in the 20s or 30s. So, and you talk about miscommunications, and that's what it was on the 2 breakdowns with Mike Williams. How do you fix this? Is it just a problem of young guys new to this defense that will somehow sort itself out? Just came at the wrong time for you?
I think it was a combination of things. I think it was the fact that Brandon Staley is very good at what he does and scheming guys open. A lot of those deep crossers, Mike Williams, was getting in behind guys, and communication was just not happening the way that it needed to happen, whether that's on John Johnson or those new guys that were in the secondary that were stepping in for someone else. Like, those guys, they had their moments in man coverage where they were good. And Greedy has been fantastic the past couple of weeks. But when those communication mistakes happen, you can be good for the 90% of the game, but if you have those blown coverages and you're giving up touchdowns, that's the difference in the game. And that's what played out this past Sunday. So I think it's a combination of issues. I think Troy Hill, you can see his leadership on the field. There was a moment early in the season where Jeremiah owusu-koramoah, he had outside leverage, with Troy Hill, and he decided that he was going to try to get around the block to the outside and make the tackle. Instead, the guy cut back inside, or it might have been reversed. He might have been going inside with Troy Hill, and the guy went outside to pick up the first down. And Troy Hill was like, "Hey, I'm here. Like
Yeah.
you need to be playing the boundary, get on the other side. And that same situation played out later in the game, and Owusu-Koramoah did not make that same mistake. So you see the leadership that he brings to the field. His play just hasn't been what we are accustomed to seeing from him over the past couple of years. So I think there's a lot of contributing factors to this. I think it's John Johnson still feeling his way around the scheme, or getting to know his teammates, and Troy Hill still adjusting, and all those injuries that they had in the secondary. And the fact that you're just playing a really good team that knows how to take advantage of any miscommunication that you have. So it's a combination of things. I think it is something that they should have no problem getting sorted out over the course of a week of practice.
Yeah, I think so too. It was more the safeties than anything. So in the first one, it's just they're in quarters, and then they're three deep, and so much of that it's that Seattle scheme. So it's a lot of matchup stuff where guys from one zone to another have to be able to pass guys off.
Right.
And even the play design on on the second one where Mike Williams went deep was really good, and it almost reminded you of like the it wasn't the same play, but it's a very similar concept to the Super Bowl a couple years ago with the 22 Jet Wasp, where the safety comes up, to cover a guy on a crosser or a shorter route, thinking that he can vacate his deep third or deep fourth in the quarters, and the guy goes right behind him. And John Johnson turned his hips one way, and the whole left side of the field was wide open. So it's something that Delpit on that one, who jumped up and took that, will have to learn from. But there's no. I mean, they got to learn it quick. I mean, they cannot give up those kind of plays in any game against any team, or else they'll be in trouble against a bad team one of these times if they keep that up. But inexcusable, pretty much, the communication stuff, new to the scheme and everything, but first time it really shined through in this game, and Herbert's not one that's going to miss out there for sure. Let's talk about this game. You're watching All Eyes on Cleveland. Big game against the Cardinals. 4 o'clock game. Love this. It's going to rain on Saturday. It's going to be 60 degrees. It's one of those games that it's going to start in the daytime. It's going to be nighttime by the end. It's finally like fall football. Have a real fall feel in Cleveland. Cardinals are coming in undefeated. It's a great matchup. Kyler Murray, I guess shoulder issues is the word. Let's see. I got a couple things here. A couple things going on the injury stuff here. We'll take a quick look. Cliff Kingsbury says Rodney Hudson won't play. Chandler Jones has symptoms after testing positive for COVID-19. Might be out this week. I believe he has to test positive or negative twice before Sunday to play. And then now, look at this. This injury list is ridiculous, right? Look at this.
It's
Browns
the movie credits at the end of a movie. He's got the
seriously,
scrolling credits.
It's unbelievable. It's an epidemic in the NFL right now, these injuries. But and you see down here, Kyler Murray, right shoulder limited both Wednesday and Thursday as well on their side. As far as the Browns go, it doesn't sound like, I think I heard today Wills will not play on Sunday. Is that right? So I would expect to see more of what's his
More
name?
Blake Hance out there.
Blake Hance. More Blake Hance out there, who did a pretty good job last week.
Well, I think Cleveland did a good job of similar to what Los Angeles did with Rashawn Slater. But, when you have a guy that you're a little bit scared of, the way that Cleveland might have been with Joey Bosa, or that Los Angeles was with Myles Garrett, you certainly have some help on the corner trying to chip those guys and, at least muddy it up a little bit so they're not getting free rushes to the quarterback.
How do you slow down Kyler Murray? What's the approach here?
Well, I think you have to be very disciplined because, you rush, but you can't get too deep in your rushes, because the minute that you do, he's going to step up. He's going to step up and get out and run. Honestly, he hasn't ran as much as he has in previous years. So the shoulder injury is a little bit more of a concern, I think, relative to previous years where he would just look to beat you with his legs, depending on the game plan. But I think what Cleveland has to do is kind of contain him a little bit. Get upfield, but don't get too deep so that he's going to be able to get up and out of the pocket and get those first downs on third down because, Browns fans, you can hear the curse words on third down right now as Myles Garrett gets too far upfield and Kyler Murray escapes and, picks up a 3rd and 12 or something ridiculous like that. But I think Rodney Hudson being out is a potentially interesting circumstance in this game because he's such a savvy veteran. He might not be playing at the same level that he's played previously, but this is a guy that has tremendous leadership and he's in charge of the communication up front. And what we've seen from Cleveland with Joe Woods this year is that he's not afraid to put a Jadeveon Clowney, as a 0 or a 1 technique and put him over the center, put him in that A gap and attack those guys, maybe have a tackle and stunt to, test that communication, test that new center that's coming in the game, and make sure that they're going to be able to pass guys off correctly. Because if they're not, then Myles Garrett's the type of guy that's going to be able to wreck your game plan. I mean, his very first NFL game, he was coming up the A gap against the Jets and just completely blew up the quarterback. And that's been no different throughout the course of his career. He's continued to do that on a weekly basis. So Cleveland has been very good about scheming opportunities for their defensive linemen as much as they have the guys on offense. So I think one thing that you can expect to see from Joe Woods and this team this week is some stunts to the A gap and really challenging that communication up front for the Cardinals in the absence of Rodney Hudson.
Yeah, definitely, the speed rush getting upfield is not really probably what they're going to want to do this week. What Garrett specializes at, they're going to have to use try to hem Murray back in there. Is running past him as it leaves those holes open and is problematic. The interesting part about this is that the 49ers did a pretty darn good job against him last week in a very similar scheme, almost the same scheme, Joe Woods' old position. There's probably something to take away from that as far as their approach to slowing down Murray, right?
I mean, you would think so. They do a lot of those deep overs. They use Rondale Moore in a variety of ways. That's going to be, kind of a key for this coming game because they line him up everywhere. They line him up in the backfield. They line him up in the slot. They line him up outside. They'll give it to him on jet sweeps. Like, this is a guy that's going to be put into motion, and you have to account for him. The communication that we talked about last week against the Chargers, that's got to be on point again this coming week because the look is going to change before the snap because of how they use Rondale Moore, and you have to communicate that and pass that off with as much zone as they play. So that's going to be put into question again this week, and you kind of hope throughout the course of the week they work out some of those communication issues. But keep Kyler in the pocket, communicate, and I think Cleveland really has a good opportunity to win this game. I think it should be, I'm not going to say it's easy because it's certainly not. This is a very good team. Kyler is a very good quarterback and probably deserves more respect than he generally receives. But I do think it's a little bit of an easier challenge relative to the Chargers, specifically the Chargers. I would typically say the Chiefs, but the Chiefs just haven't looked like what we typically see from the Chiefs this year. So I think it's going to be a little bit of an easier test than we saw last week against the Chargers. Browns
are -3 home favorites. I guess at a neutral site that would probably be a pick 'em. What do you think? You got a prediction for us here, Josh, before we get you out of here?
Let's see. Browns -3. So I will say I think they're going to cover the spread. I don't have a specific score prediction, but I will say I think they're going to cover the spread. I think this is another game where Baker's on point. I think an emphasis in practice is going to be the communication with Odell Beckham Jr. We saw some of those miscommunications a couple of weeks ago with OBJ where Baker maybe thought there were some back shoulder opportunities and instead, he had wide open space in front of him. So I think some of those things are going to be ironed out. It may not happen this week, but I think that's going to be a point of emphasis. I think the communication on the back end of the secondary is going to be a point of emphasis this week. And hopefully the biggest caveat in all of this is what happens with the injury report. It sounds like Arizona is going to be without Rodney Hudson and Chandler Jones. Kyler Murray might be limited, but Cleveland's got their own issues. So I'm curious to see what the severity of those injuries look like over the course of the week. And maybe Greg Newsome is back out there because Greg has done a fantastic job in zone coverage. I mean, he's been a really bright spot this year in this Browns defense. Does a really good job of communicating pass off, stuff like that. So if they're able to get him back on the field, you're not only aiding your depth, but you're getting a really good player back out there as well that knows how to communicate, really smart. And I think there's obviously room on the field for that type of player every given week.
No question about it. He would be great to get back. It looks like he has been limited in practice both days. A lot of these guys that did not participate. When you look at like Treader and stuff, or guys that are probably going to suit up, that's almost a weekly thing for Treader at this point. So, hoping to have the majority of these guys available. Of course, we had a little surprise on Sunday with Clowney. But we'll see if he's available on Sunday as well. That'll be big. Josh, you've been fantastic. Thank you so much for your time, man. We're going to go ahead and get you out of here, but we appreciate you coming on All Eyes on Cleveland. And tell everybody where they can find your work and check out your stuff.
Yeah, so you can follow me on Twitter at EdwardsCBS. I also do a lot of draft coverage for CBSSports.com. And then this week specifically, I will be covering the Browns-Cardinals game. So check out CBSSports.com. We'll have a live blog with analysis, live betting odds, fantasy tips, all this kind of stuff leading up to the game, through the game, and then after the game. So we've got you covered on all bases.
Fantastic. Check it out and go follow him on Twitter. He is Josh Edwards, and we are very thankful for your time tonight, Josh. Have a good one, man.
Thank you. Thanks for having me, and go Browns.
Yes, sir. Big thanks to Josh Edwards of CBS Sports covering the NFL. He writes for the NFL Draft. He is a fellow Ohio Bobcat, went to Ohio University and graduated from there. And Xavier, thanks for him coming on the show tonight. All Eyes on Cleveland. I'm Brad Ward. Mikey's on the ones and twos. A couple other things I wanted to talk about here. Solo with you folks out there. Feel free to leave some comments in the comment section. We've got a couple. These are way too short. He should be doing at least 2 hours. Who should be doing 2 hours? Me? Troy? Oh, it's not over yet, buddy. I got to give myself a little time to talk here tonight, buddy. But yeah, thanks to Josh for the interview for sure. Let's talk about Baker for a minute. Let's bring up some of this stuff. So, we went back and looked at this stuff pretty extensively. Last week we covered his shoulder injury pretty extensively at All Eyes on Cleveland and talked, my brother played with the injury at receiver in college, Ohio Wesleyan, and talked to me at length about it. It's not painful so much as it is restrictive with the harness, and that's kind of what we were Troy, man, you can do no wrong, brother. It's all good. It is all good. We're not ending yet, but it's all good. You can do no wrong. You ask for more All Eyes on Cleveland, you shall get more All Eyes on Cleveland, sir. Troy is a faithful supporter of the show, and we appreciate that big time. But yeah, let's talk about Baker and what we saw from him. And what we saw, honestly, when we went back and looked at this, is this right here. And I want to bring this up again as I had it up earlier. But, I agree. Baker looked much better last week. There's no question about it. And the harness is certainly affecting him. I think there's no question about that either. That you could see the adjustment in his throwing motion. So from we were started off, me and Jeff last week on the show, comparing his throwing motion from week A to B, which was the Vikings week from the Bears week to the Vikings week, or from prior to the injury to the Vikings week, where he was very inaccurate. And you could see when you talked at length about him, coming away from the ball, he uses a lot of his body, even more than some other quarterbacks, but very much. And he's always got the thumb pointed down here, right? And we were seeing a lot of him tucking his arm back with his thumb up into his shoulder, and that basically we figured out. And I put pictures of it on Twitter, but that's the harness, right? He can't fully extend, get that same torque or that same motion with the harness on. It seems like they adjusted it somewhat, and he looked much better, much more accurate against the Chargers. However, the same issues are arising, and I want to preface this with, and I should have done it today when I put the tweet out, and I made the mistake of tweeting on this topic because you get such anger from both sides of this issue, right? And the threat will probably continue till the end of time, or until the two of them, Odell and Baker, are not on the same team. But something is wrong here, right? Like, there is something wrong. I don't know what is happening, but Odell is open. He is open down the field. There are 4 instances of it, plain as day, on the all-22 footage, where he is wide open. And a couple of them, Baker's not even looking in his direction. But I urge you to go watch Chris Sims' segment from yesterday. He does a What the Fuck Happened segment on his show. And one of them was on the Browns and the Chargers. And he was talking about Baker not seeing Odell, or not even throwing, because, a couple of the plays were successful plays. One was to Donovan Peoples-Jones, but Baker was open over the top on a corner route. Odell was open over the top on a corner route. The Njoku touchdown honestly could have gone to Odell, very similar to the Mike Williams play where he was wide open. And then what you're talking about later on in the game, even in the fourth quarter, in crucial segments in the game where they didn't score on drives, he gets quarters coverage. You're getting a soft man-to-man where the guy's off of him by like 8 feet. I should have put the tape up here, but I don't have it. But he's off 8 feet, and there's no safety help over the middle. He literally just runs a post, and he's wide open. And Baker doesn't even look at him. He goes left, and he never looks at him. And that's pre-snap identification where, dude, he's got leverage, he's got space, there's no help. This is Odell Beckham Jr. Holy shit, I should be looking right for this. This is going to be open. This should be 6. And he's not going there. I don't get it. Glenn has, in the comments here, has said the same thing. He saw that with Diggs and Cousins back in, and he said something similar to that. You think the coach is handcuffing him? Glenn is saying, I would disagree, because we saw him at the end of last year, right? Throwing into tight windows down the field and not missing these kind of things, right? He's missed Donovan Peoples-Jones on numerous times. He's been wide open early in the season. Odell has been a steady diet of missing him open down the field. Now, it may be the harness now. He may not feel that he can even throw it that far down the field. Statistically, he is 0 for his last 11 on passes of 20-plus yards or more. That's not great. It's not great, obviously. So something is wrong there, because that's not Baker Mayfield. We know Baker Mayfield pushes the ball down the field successfully. He'll throw it into tight windows. He will pretty much plays balls out, right? But you look at, to Glenn's point, maybe they're emphasizing turnovers, right? No turnovers in the last 3 games. Maybe that's the emphasis. Maybe they don't want him to take those chances, right now. It's hard to fathom what's going on, but it doesn't make sense with Odell because Odell is open. And to that point, I will bring this up again. He is open. Devontae Adams and Odell Beckham Jr. are getting open on 72% of their routes, 5+ yards or more. Troy commenting on the end of the game last week. The reason that we ran into it on 3rd and 10 is because it would have been an unpredictable play. Had it work, even though it didn't work, it still probably shocked the Chargers like while they ran. Yeah, Troy, I get that, but I get that idea, and I've heard people argue that too. Like, hey, he would have looked like a genius if it would have worked. But to be honest, that is the point in the game that you play for as an offense. You can't be aggressive all game long, go for it on 4th downs, go toe for toe with the Chargers, and then have a chance to salt the game away with a couple first downs and settle for a run in that situation. Whether you trust Baker or not, and I do, but whether Stefanski does or not, or whether he's worried about the tackle or not, you have to go to a play and attempt to get that first down. Punting to them is game over in that point. Your defense has not stopped them at all the entire game. Your punter can't clear it past the 50-yard line, which is a whole nother issue that I didn't even breach on the show, but the punting situation is putrid right now. But, they got the ball at the 50-yard line, of course. All they needed was a field goal. You give them the ball back there, the game is over. You know that going into 3rd down. Stefanski said he was sick about the play call. We were all sick about it because you needed 2 first downs, realistically, to put away that game. You needed to stay aggressive. And he kind of choked on it. And I love Stefanski, and I'll never say that he's not the right guy for the job, and he's a great play caller, but he got tight. He got really tight late, and you can't do that because what you look at and what people are now looking at is you're seeing a pattern. The Ravens last year, the Chiefs in the playoffs, the Chiefs this year, the Chargers this year. Big games, elite teams, they're not finding a way to get it done. Don't get me wrong, this is a young football team who has to learn how to finish. Hence the name of the showing tonight. Browns look to learn from growing pains. These are the growing pains you have to go through when you bring in a whole new defense on the defensive side of the ball. And you have communication problems like you had last week. I'll still say, and I just want to make this clear, that Odell is open. Let's be clear. He's open, and for whatever reason, he's not getting the ball. And that's weird. It's weird. It would make them better. They need to find a way to get him the ball. This statistic, the film from last week, it needs to be portrayed to Baker. You need to get him the ball when he's open. He's one of our best playmakers. I think Stefanski realizes it. In his quote this week, he said, in one of the quotes, we need to give our playmakers more chances down the field. Flat out, quote. I read between that as saying he realizes that he had open receivers and they were missed. I don't blame. The Chargers couldn't stop the Browns for the entirety of the game. They could not. They could not stop the run game. Baker was effective in the intermediate to short pass game. Njoku was fantastic. Finally unlocked that. Let's hope that can keep going. But as far as grading out Baker so far this year, he's not playing as well as he was at the end of last year. And people that are pointing to the 122.57 and all this stuff, that's a great passer rating, but realistically, he's not playing the same way he was at the end of last year. He's not there yet. Maybe it's the injury, maybe it's the harness, maybe it's the coaching. I don't think it's the coaching, to be honest, but he's playing at like a C+ level right now. And he needs to be better than that for this offense to be good enough to finish off and win games against teams like the Chargers. Great news is they play the Cardinals this week. And you know what? The Browns don't match up as well against the Chargers and Chiefs as they will against the Cardinals. I really feel strongly that what the Browns do defensively is going to show well against the Cardinals this week. Look at what the 49ers did. 49ers virtually run the same scheme that Joe Woods runs. And yeah, Troy, you're absolutely right. That's a great point. Best point right there. It's week 5, right? We're not even close to done judging what Baker's body of work will look like this year. And I said it to Josh. I fully believe by the end of this season that he will be worth signing a dotted line on a $40 million contract. They will sign him up as a franchise quarterback. You heard it here first, whatever. You heard it here second, third, fourth. I fully believe that when he gets right or they figure this thing out or whatever happens, he will be the man going forward. He didn't start off great last year either, is another thing, but he hit his groove and he looked fantastic. Glenn saying he didn't play great last year to start. Same point I made to make, nor did he play the play calling until after the Pittsburgh game. It's a great point. Play calling was not as good until after the Pittsburgh game. Play calling has been great so far until the end of the game. I have no problem with Stefanski as a genius play caller. He has defenses off balance week in, week out for the most part. That Chargers defense is not terrible. They have some good players on that defense. What the Browns did to them, the way they ran the ball on them and passed the ball on them, they could not stop them, which is why it's so frustrating that he got tight at the end of the game, because there's no reason to stop that momentum just because the guy missed an extra point. I've made this point multiple times. If he makes the extra point and it's a tie game, they come out gunslinging, running plays to go down and score. They should have come out doing that to go get two first downs, then sit on it, then go victory formation, and you get out of there with the win. You have the ball up 1. That's the ideal situation you want. Nobody stopped you all day. You should be able to go get 2 first downs. He got tight. He ran it on 3rd and 9 in that situation. Giving them the ball back there is game over. Very frustrating. Let's talk about the Cardinals, though. I mean, this to me is justification week, right? The Cardinals should have lost twice. The Browns should have won 2 games. The Cardinals and the Browns in Cleveland at 4 o'clock on a fall afternoon. Like I said, I love games like this. It's going to be dark by the time the game's over. I got the Browns winning this game, and I got them winning by like 10. They're going to come out strong. The defense is going to play well. Murray's dinged. Chandler Jones might not play. Hudson's out. I expect it, as long as the Browns can field a healthy enough team. And don't get me wrong, like a lot of people have blamed the defense on the depth last week, but it wasn't the depth. It was your starting safeties that were not good last week. The missed plays were Ronnie Harrison and Delpit. Blown coverages with John Johnson back there. John Johnson will get it. He's a great football player. He hasn't showed up like that yet. Troy Hill is a great football player. God damn it, I would pound the table for Troy Hill. We love him here. These guys were brought in to do everything on the defensive side of the ball, and they looked great for 2 straight weeks against the Bears and the Vikings, and they ran into a buzzsaw against Justin Herbert, who is fantastic and has weapons all around him. But the miscommunications where Mike Williams is just running wide open down the field is just what can't happen. And those miscommunications did not come from the Browns' depth. Greedy Williams played great. A.J. Green played pretty damn good in relief, forced into action. Played pretty damn good. Those plays were on the safeties. Your starting safeties, Grant Delpit, Ronnie Harrison, not in the right place. Poor communication, poor reads. They'll get it fixed up this week. It won't happen. Glenn Hammond's commenting. Why haven't we used trick plays? He's setting stuff up, and then he will release the true break. Yeah, I mean, I think that once again, I go back to that. I don't think he's 100%, not because of the pain or anything, but I think the harness is really restrictive, and I think that may affect his ability to really get back. I mean, try go out back and try throwing a tennis ball, even a football, whatever, as far as you can. It takes this front arm. It does. It takes a lot of that, and it takes the extension and the turn and all of that. And right now, he doesn't have that. This is restricted to him. That's why I think they figured out last week. Oh, maybe we can do this, whatever, loosen it a little bit, and he can. He felt comfortable and he looked great throwing in the intermediate and short and very accurate, right? But the downfield pass, the deep ball, the ones where we're going, oh my God, Odell's wide open. Why isn't he throwing him the ball? Maybe it's the harness. Could be. Problem is, we're starting now to see more and more data points of them on the field together and it not working. That's the problem, right? Let's be real. We thought that more and more data points of them on the field together would lead to, this was just a fluke. It was just they needed time. They needed this. The offense, the whole thing was last year. It wasn't. They wanted us to believe this narrative, right? They fed us this in the offseason. It wasn't a disconnect between Baker and Odell. It was just the offense wasn't where it was supposed to be until after Odell got hurt. If Odell would have been there after he got hurt, then he would have been a beneficiary of the offense just like everybody else was, blooming and looking great through the second half of the season. Well, here we are, and it's more time with OBJ and Baker on the field and still no connection. And OBJ's open. I mean, the statistics don't lie. One more time. 72% of his routes 5 yards downfield. He's open. Get him the ball. I don't know, but he's a weapon. No Jarvis Landry right now. He's a weapon, and I don't know what it is. Maybe it's just that the routes are, like I said, just too long, and that he's really trying to protect the ball. He hasn't turned it over. Maybe it is coaching. Maybe they're saying we don't want you taking any chances, no turnovers. With our run game, we can win games. I doubt that. I think Stefanski would like to get him the ball. I think it's more of Bake probably holding back a little bit because of that harness or whatever it may be. And sometimes his vision, he misses guys. He misses guys sometimes. That's one of his faults, and it has been one of his faults for a couple of years. Not saying he's a bad quarterback. I love Baker. But one of the things he does is he misses guys that are open. We need to give defense time for the communication, says Glenn. You even said to start the season, week 7 or 8 would be when our... Yeah, 100%. 100%. I mean, hell, this defense, when they played the way they did against the Bears and against the Vikings, I was shocked that they were playing that well this early. Glenn, you're absolutely right. I did say that. I don't think that... I think this defense is a top 5 defense in the NFL, and they're ranked up there now, but because of the benefit of playing Justin Fields in his first ever game and the tremendous game they played against the Vikings, because the Vikings have a great offense too, so you cannot give them credit for that game. But what we're finding out is in reality, without those breakdowns, I like this defense even more now than I did before the season, Glenn, because let's think about it. I didn't know what Greedy was. Greedy looks great. I didn't know what A.J. Green was. A.J. Green looks great. I mean, these guys, this defense should be fantastic in the second half of the season. They should be top-notch in the second half of the season. And Baker should be, further we get away from the shoulder injury, maybe they take the bigger harness down to a smaller one and he gets some more range of motion, and maybe we start to see that deep ball a little bit more. It's very possible. And maybe we start to see true Bake pushing the ball into tight windows more. Maybe he's playing a little conservative because of that right now. The problem I have believing that, and I do think that may be some of it, the problem I have with believing that, though, is that there's just a history of him missing guys from time to time. at his best last year, he still missed guys. But he will push the ball down the field. And I think that Baker will, by the end of the season, look like your franchise quarterback. I do believe that. Fully believe that. And I fully believe that this will be a top 5 defense by the end of the year. This is your justification game against the Cardinals. Cardinals should have lost twice. Browns should have maybe won twice. This evens it all out, right? Browns beat the Cardinals. It's big news. They be the only undefeated team. The Cardinals should have lost. This justifies that, gets kind of evens things out both sides. This is your karma game, right? This evens things out. This just makes sense to me that the Browns go out and win this game, and I think they look sharp. And I think that this is the difference between Stefanski and other coaches in the league. Is you see all the nonsense going on with Gruden, and I'm not going to breach that topic. And Urban Meyer, I breached that topic on our Monday show way too much. That Stefanski is so focused, single-minded, and good at what he does, from getting these guys not too high, not too low. You talk about Dan Campbell crying at the podium, right? Not too high, not too low. The opposite of that they can go from a tough, really gut-wrenching loss against a good team like the Chargers and turn their focus to the Cardinals, come home, and beat them. And I thoroughly believe that they come home and win. I texted it on like Tuesday. I just have a feeling they are going to look really, really sharp in this game. Corrections on defense. Baker looks sharp. Cardinals won't be able to stop this run game. I don't know if anybody can stop this run game in the NFL, to be honest. This run game is an unstoppable force right now. Legit. For real. There's my concerns so far. And Glenn, you mentioned trick plays. Wait, where's the reverse to Odell? Where's the throwback play or just a couple little wide receiver screens early to get him involved? Let's do that. Let's get him involved in the game early. To his credit, he's blocking his ass off. He's got 70-plus blocking grades. He's bought in. You cannot blame Odell for any of this. He's getting open. He's explosive. He's blocking. Let's get him the ball. Reward him. Get him the ball. It can't be that hard. The guy's open. It's just weird. The whole thing with Baker and him, it's just weird. It just doesn't make any sense, right? It's just weird. And the more data that supports it, the harder it is to fight that and just say, oh, it's this, it's that. Nobody can really explain it. I asked Josh the question, and he's like, it's just weird. But let's get him the ball early. See what that does. I think Baker just honestly feels comfortable throwing the ball to other people more sometimes. Yeah, I'm not sure what he's saving it for either, but, I'm not going to doubt Stefanski. He got tight and choked. I don't think we'll ever see it again, folks. He's the kind of guy that will learn from this mistake, and I don't think we'll ever see it again. Yeah, absolutely right. Glenn commented in the comment section, none of this is on Obi. None of it is. He's been fantastic. He's been bought in, and yeah, absolutely. So, as you said, as I said, I think this is a win. This is shocking here as we were looking at this with Josh, too. I mean, what is going on and I said this on my Monday, when I'm on the Monday recap show. Look at this freaking. So this is what's going on with the Cardinals. Bob McManaman. Cliff Kingsbury says Rodney Hudson won't play. Chandler Jones has symptoms of testing positive for COVID-19. I think they have 3 guys positive for COVID-19. 1 more, and they will have to go into the alert level in their locker room. Browns are hosting them this weekend. But look at this freaking injury list from today. This is just the Browns. This is just the Browns. This is just the Cardinals. Oh, come on, guy. Keep working. Yeah, I mean, that's ridiculous. It's like the freaking phone book. Beecham, Daniels, Edmonds, limited. Hopkins, illness, did not participate. Hicks, Hudson, ribs, shoulder, he's out. Byron Murphy, ribs, limited, did not participate on Wednesday. Kyler Murray, right shoulder, limited. Peters, defensive line, rest. Vallejo did not participate. Hand, linebacker. Wilson, ribs, cornerback, limited today. Did not participate on Wednesday. The Browns, Chubb, calf, DNP. Clowney, elbow, knee, DNP, and then limited today. Conklin, knee, DNP. Garrett, knee, ankle, DNP, limited. AJ Green, shoulder, knee, limited both days. Hunt didn't play either day. Wrist, knee. I mean, they're listing 2 injuries at once on these guys. Look at McDowell. Elbow, foot, neck. It's ridiculous. Just put entire body, whole body out, limited. I mean, so, I think a lot of these guys will play. Fortunately, we talked about the culture of this offensive line. I mean, Treader's going to play. I don't think Wills will play. I think Hans will start there. I don't know what's up with Conklin. It's good that he didn't go on the IR, so obviously they expect him back at some point. And the other thing we don't know yet is about Jarvis. He's been running. They've kind of hinted that he should be back soon. Do they mean this weekend? I don't know. We could sure use him this weekend against the Cardinals. But, I mean, I would send this to Los Angeles, to SoFi Field, and say, maybe next time you splurge for, $15 billion stadium, whatever it cost, maybe you can put some real grass in instead of this turf. So, I don't get that. If you're going to build a nice-ass stadium out in Los Angeles, put real grass in. The turf is killing guys, taking them out. I mean, I said earlier, this is all around the league injury list look like this right now. It's rough this year. What's the cause? I don't know. Is it because of the easier preseason? Guys doing a lot less in the preseason? I find that hard to believe. I mean, it wasn't even this bad last year, and it was even shortened more last year. But this year, I mean, absolutely everybody is injured every week. So, a lot going on there. Let's see if I've covered everything. Yeah, I mean, 49ers did a good job with Murray. You've got to hem him in the pocket. You can't over pursue. I think that the Browns corners will be fine. They need to be better, obviously, communications wise. Surely the Cardinals saw that tape, and they're gonna run stuff that stresses those points where the Browns broke down communication wise last week. They're gonna run cover 3 beaters that stress the communication points there, that circle guys back into vacancies behind, like 22 Jet Wasp did. They're going to do stuff like that. Browns hopefully spend the time, Joe Woods, get it right communication-wise. I think they'll get it right. John Johnson has not been what we saw with the Rams, but I don't fault him. He's getting used to it. Realize, don't worry about him. He's a hell of a football player. He will be there in the end. Should have had an interception 2 weeks ago. Bogus calls galore this week. I don't even want to get into it. All the stuff we talked about with Stefanski choking at the end should have never happened, right? Browns up 9. The freaking Chargers go for it on their own 40-yard line and get bailed out on that kind of an interference call. That's why they need the sky judge or whatever, right? They used it on the one play wherever they called down to the official when on a 2-point conversion when Eckler ran in and he came up short. They didn't even go to the booth review or anything. They just called right down to the official, said he's short. He overruled it right on the spot. bing, bang, boom. It took no time at all. Why can't that be done on every replay? How often do we see them go to the booth and then they come back and still get it wrong? Drives me nuts. Officiating was brutal. Killed the Browns. Killed a lot of teams on Sunday, but especially killed the Browns. There's multiple things that went into that game where the officiating was terrible. But the problem is I can't blame the officiating when there was so much game after that the Browns had a chance to win the game anyways. So it's really hard to put it all on them. Yeah, you're absolutely right. Kyler Murray does a lot of what Herbert does. However, he does more off script than even Herbert does. I mean, they do a lot of. You're going to see the wide receivers out there and a lot of ad-libbing, and he does more off script. Murray is just the guy that will go out, and when the Browns are in zone, he's going to run around until that zone breaks down, and he's going to wing it in there. I mean, he's very much like Mahomes like that. You can't really blitz him. You got to get home with your front four, which shouldn't be a problem with the Browns because their front four has been fantastic. Even against the Chargers was very good. Watch them on where they spot balls. Hunt lost about I mean, officials missing spots. Yeah, everything. Poor stuff. Poor performance by them. Really hurt the Browns. But the Browns hurt the Browns too. So let's be real about that. Can't let that happen again this week, especially against the talented wide receivers you can see. AJ Green is their leading receiver somehow. Resurgence in Arizona, but Kyler Murray, I don't know how injured he is, but the speed rush stuff from Garrett can't happen here. You're going to see, and even Josh mentioned it. The one thing the Browns have really started to gel earlier with is the guys in the middle, McDowell and both Malik's and Garrett, Tack McKinley, and even when Clowney was in there, are really playing well off each other. They're all really starting to play those games up there and winning with those games up front and front four stunts and twists and coming off each other's hips and confusing offensive lines. And without Hudson at center, that they should be doing the same thing and focusing the pressure towards the interior and none of that, not as much of that speed rush stuff. You can't break contain on Murray because he'll just run. He'll take that 15 yards every time. And Jeremiah owusu-koramoah, his ability to play and some of the highlights we saw from last week, JOK, him in the existence of Malik McDowell, who I had huge questions about this defensive line room, but those two on the field with the talent around them, I mean, that even raises the ceiling for this defense even higher, in my opinion. So I got the Browns winning this one against the Cardinals. You can call me a homer all you want, but to me this is a justice game, a karma game. They should have lost twice. Browns 2 games probably should have won. Probably outplayed the other team for 2 games. Maybe not on Sunday, but a game they should have won probably, and they didn't get them. This evens things out. Gives the Cardinals their first loss. Gives the Browns a big win over an undefeated team, and makes things right in the NFL. Just kind of seems right that they win this one. And I do think that from what you saw, from the way the 49ers played the Cardinals and really slowed them down to 17 points, I think they won 17-10. Browns run the same stuff just with better athletes or equal to or better athletes. So if you don't break down communication-wise, and they are going to stress those points, I mentioned that. Kingsbury will do that. But if the Browns are true in their communication and true in their coverage, as far as the safeties go, they should be good. they should be able to slow them down. And like I said, I don't think anybody can stop the Browns' run game, especially this Cardinals defense. I don't think can stop the run game without bringing extra people up in the box. And Baker was good enough last week to take advantage of that. So the Browns should win this game. I think they're better than the Cardinals. I don't think the Cardinals are the best team in the NFC. I think probably the best team in the NFC is probably the Rams, in my opinion. But they beat the Rams, Not head-to-head matchups don't always prove who's the better team is. 9 out of 10 times, probably not 9, like 7 out of 10 times I'd take the Rams over them. Hey, we're running right up against Thursday Night Football. Go watch the game. I'm Brad Ward. This is All Eyes on Cleveland. I've just been talking to these guys, Glenn in chat, Troy. Thank you guys so much for your comments. A lot of stuff this week to get off my chest. Thanks for Josh for coming on. CBS Sports covers the NFL. He'll be covering the Browns and the Cardinals game. 4:05 fall game. Gonna rain on Saturday. Should avoid the rain on Sunday. Talked about this already. Should be 60 degrees. 4 o'clock games, starting the day, nighttime by the time it's over. Third quarter starts to get dark. Fun games. Those are fun games. Those are the kind of games I love in Cleveland. Should be a lot of fun. Big game. One of the biggest games of the weekend. A lot of eyes on this one. And I think the Browns show up well. Stefanski never lost 2 games in a row in his career. Thank you guys so much for watching. You guys are the best. If you are a fan of what All Eyes on Cleveland does and want to support what we do, you can become a member down below in the... No, I don't think it's going to be particularly windy. I think it'll be somewhat windy, Glenn, but I don't think we're talking about affect the game windy. Not like last year where they had the 3 win games in a row, that changed the whole play structure and game script of all 3 of those games with the wind. I don't think it's that kind of wind. But it's on the lake. It'll be a little bit windy. Browns win, though, in my opinion, and cover and look good. So, it'll be a fun one. Got all this stuff on my chest. Thanks to Mikey on the 1s and 2s. Once again, thanks to Josh. Go to the link in the description below if you want to support All Eyes on Cleveland. Become a member, $3 a month. Get all of my random thoughts in our exclusive content section, plus other audio clips and video clips that I'm posting in there all the time. You can go to the website, www.alleyesoncleveland.com, and leave a voicemail anytime, and I'll play it on the air. Just ask and our patrons that we already have at All Eyes on Cleveland, as I want to thank them real quickly. Robert Schulner and Nick Farmer, thanks for being members of All Eyes on Cleveland. You can do the same in the link below in the description. Hit like, hit subscribe, keep coming back, tell a friend. This is All Eyes on Cleveland. I am Brad Ward. Mikey is on the 1s and 2s. Go Brownies. Keep coming back. This has been a fun one. And last thing, I'm very long-winded this evening, so thank you for bearing with me. On Saturday nights now, it's official, we're doing it every Saturday night. Your game day preview, joint collaboration, All Eyes on Cleveland and OBR Film Room Breakdown with Jake Burns. Every Saturday night we will be doing, it's about 20 minutes long, go over the lines, the weather, 3 keys to the game from each of us. And it's just podcast. It won't be on YouTube or anything, but you can get it from his feed or my feed. But we've done it like the last 3 games, and we're going to keep doing it. So we're doing a little crossover, both part of the Blue Wire podcast family. So we're doing a little crossover show. We usually record it around 10 or 11, depending on things going on Saturday night, so it's available for you first thing on Sunday morning as you're getting ready for your Browns game throughout the day. Just throw it on 20 minutes. It's really good stuff. Jake's the best there is, and so we do that together every Saturday night. So make sure you listen for that. Make sure you are following the podcast so that pops up. All Eyes on Cleveland, where all popular podcasts can be found. So thank you so much for listening tonight. Appreciate you guys, everybody that supports us. Hit the subscribe button. Keep coming back. Go Brownies. They're going to win on Sunday. Big one. Just threw my pen. It's okay. You start getting excited. Go Browns.